Well, this video wasn't planned at all, but something blew up in my face right in the middle of the live stream. Oh, by the way, that's interesting. Yeah, wow, we're onto something here, guys. We're onto something. And the problem is, ever since then, I can't get it out of my head. Especially when episode 6 of the excellent series Daredevil Born Again Season 2 came along and confirmed it. I've been trying for weeks, even months, to figure out who the real main villain is in the movie Spider-Man Brand New Day. Or at least, the one who's going to equip most of the villains with high-tech gear, forever changing crime in New York. And the arrival of Jessica Jones alongside Daredevil sparked a very interesting thought. Someone high up in the government is behind all of this. Someone above the famous Mr. Charles, whom we heard about in the very first episode of the series. Someone who, without us knowing, has been present in the MCU for a while. Oh yes, I'm teasing you, because to get to that famous name, we're going to have to look at the big picture, my friends. You know, I don't like throwing out theories without proving to you that everything fits together. That's why we're really entering the spoiler zone, the danger zone. Because what I'm about to reveal will blow your mind. You're here with Kevin Buckott, your favorite vigilante's favorite theorist. Roll the intro. Vigilantes and villains. The MCU as we know it hasn't been populated with many superhumans so far, at least not on the villains side. Sure, we had super soldiers, Asgardian gods, aliens, and even killer AIs, but most of the genetically mutated characters have usually stayed on the good side. Yes, you'll obviously find some counterexamples, but let me explain. In the comics, two heroes share the top spot as the most popular heroes. Batman on the DC side and Spider-Man at Marvel. Many factors can explain their popularity, but they share one thing in common: their roster of villains. A good hero needs strong villains. A lot of heroes are really cool, but they're up against poorly written or even poorly developed clowns. But Spider-Man has the unique feature of having a roster of villains who each bring him different problems. And above all, they're rarely just villains, but humans with complex stories who, like him, have suffered through life to the point of wanting to take revenge on it. And that's actually what makes Spider-Man, like Batman, so exemplary. Anyway, why am I telling you all this? Because in the MCU, that's rarely been their strong suit, except with Spider-Man. Vulture took revenge on the DODC who stole his construction site, Mysterio took revenge on Stark Industries, and Homecoming is just soup. There, I said it. But all of this remained just minor incidents, and above all, always connected to Stark Industries. Yes, he's the one who created the DODC. What I mean is that in the MCU, there's no Oscorp, no Octopus, no real villain capable of equipping criminals to create that famous roster and give Spider-Man a full-time job. Well, that was before, because it seems that the beginning of Spider-Man Brand New Day shows us the opposite. Now, a lot of villains, no matter how ridiculous they are, have appeared. Tarantula, Boomerang, Scorpion, and the like. But then, who's behind all this? Well, the answer might just be found in Daredevil Born Again. Last week, episode 6 brought us the return of Jessica Jones to the MCU. A brief appearance, sure, but full of meaning. Jessica had already been mentioned at the beginning of season 2 as an investigator. She was the one who helped Matt and Karen get the Northern Star's logbook, the famous ship that sank in the Hudson and started it all. But now, she's really here. She seems to live with her daughter, a little mixed-race girl, in a quiet suburban house. At that moment, it was clear she had a child with Luke Cage, as in the comics. Jessica proves she's still skilled by taking down an elite unit sent after her. But this isn't Wilson Fisk's task force, since she's clearly not in New York. She even points this out to Matt, saying it's more likely a team sent by someone higher up.
It wasn't the anti-vigilante squad. After your call, I researched and discovered who supplied weapons with Fisk and who covered for him.
I'm imagining a dozen different warlords spread across a dozen countries.
Or certain segments of the United States government.
That's when it gets interesting. Yes, it was Jessica who gave Matt the information about the arms shipment, a shipment orchestrated by the famous Mr. Charles. But who exactly is this Mr. Charles, the influence of Valentina? Mr. Charles plays a key role in season 2. Clearly, he seems to be a powerful force who fears neither Fisk nor the governor. He even says himself that he's at the top of the food chain. And to really understand what's going on, you had to pay close attention. It all starts with his first appearance. While he's watching the news about the shipwreck, he takes a call from Washington and says he's going to go there himself before drowning his phone in his glass of whiskey, explicitly implying that we're dealing with a shady character from the establishment. Then he shows up in Fisk's office during a confrontation between the mayor, the city prosecutor, and the deputy governor. He states that he represents the CIA. Then the prosecutor receives a call where he agrees to release Fisk under the orders of Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. But do you remember who Madame de Fontaine is? We saw her for the first time in the post-credits scene of the series The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. At that moment, she recruits John Walker, who lost his status as Captain America after taking the super soldier serum that made him kill a terrorist. Then, at the end of the movie Black Widow, we see her trying to recruit Yelena by giving her a target, Clint Barton. But it's in Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, that we really learn who Valentina is. She is the director of the CIA and the ex-wife of Agent Eggman, and a real piece of work, but that's not all, because she is also the director of the Oxy organization. Although we know little about this organization, it's in the movie Thunderbolt that we learn it's a company aiming to create new superheroes, especially through the Sentry program. But not only that, she uses this program to recruit agents for her dirty work. Assassination, blackmail, regime change behind the scenes. In short, a response to what Hydra did with the Winter Soldier for years. But as her covert operations are exposed, Valentina is threatened with removal as head of the CIA. By the way, just a side note, do you know who Tulsi Gabbard is? Well, she's simply the Director of National Intelligence in the Trump administration since 2025. And one thing we can say is that the resemblance is striking. In short, at the beginning of Thunderbolt, Valentina makes sure to eliminate all evidence linking her, even remotely, to Oxy's illegal activities. After sending Yelena to destroy the Sentry Project lab in Malaysia, she has all her agents self-neutralize in a bunker. The only problem is they survive and turn against her, and so does Bob Reynolds. The only one who survived the Sentry Project, the Sentry. Valentina has more than one trick up her sleeve. We find out she bought the famous Stark Tower. Most of Stark's technologies as well. I'm telling you, it was Tony Stark who created the DODC. Department of Damage Control. This organization was originally intended to clean up the devastation left behind by the Avengers. But after Tony's death, the organization was attached to the government and greatly diverted from its original mission. Now its purpose is no longer to clean up, but to prevent. To prevent any superhero interference by targeting any unregistered hero or mutant. Yes, the Sokovia Accords are no longer officially ratified or operational. But the DODC pretty much does whatever it wants. For example, they're the ones managing the Abomination's detention in their prison for metahumans. Or they're also the ones who came to arrest Peter when Mysterio revealed his identity and accused him of his murder. But they're also the ones hunting mutants. As Ms. Marvel shows, and soon Wonder Man and Spider-Man Brand New Day will as well. Yes, now the DODC is everywhere. And above all, they're using Stark technology for their own purposes. However, if it's government related, that also means it's connected to the CIA and therefore to Valentina. Do you see where I'm going with this? Because let's get back to Daredevil. So it was Valentina who sent Mr. Charles to save Fisk from the prosecutor. Because Fisk, with Red Hook, is able to move illegal goods into the United States. In this case, weapons intended for a rebellion in Guinea-Bissau. But what does that have to do with what I just told you? Well, quite simply because on some of these crates, we can see the Oxy logo. Yes, Valentina uses her CIA agents not only to serve the interests of the American intelligence services around the world, but also to use her little influence with Oxy, but it doesn't stop there. New Thunderbolts? Daredevil Born Again therefore ties into the broader New York storyline. According to Disney Plus, Season 2 takes place after the Thunderbolts movie, specifically sometime in 2027. So at the time of these events, Valentina had not only confirmed her position as head of the CIA, as shown by this call, but had also expanded her influence by leading the official New Avengers of the US government. At that moment, she is all-powerful. And it seems that this is not enough, because the arrival of Jessica Jones in episode 6 reveals something else to us. So, as I was saying, the episode begins with an attack by a group of elite units in Jessica Jones's house. She seems to be alone at home with her daughter, an elite unit that, as she points out, is not from Fisk's anti-vigilante task force. And it seems that it's actually a CIA unit. Yes, Jessica is a problem. She's the one who gave Matt the information to sabotage Operation Northern Star. But most importantly, she knows Mr. Charles because he tried to recruit her, and as she says, she told him to get lost. But, she adds, I know some people who didn't.
He was interested in people like us. I told him to fuck off, not everyone I know.
After hesitating briefly, Matt realizes she's referring to Luke Cage. Which is why she ended up raising her daughter alone. Well, whether it's Luke or other people, they were supposedly recruited by Valentina. But for what purpose? Valentina already has her own team of heroes. Well, yes and no. Since, let me remind you, at the end of Thunderbolts, Valentina gets away by trapping the Thunderbolts in front of the press. They get the recognition they were so eager to have, and Valentina gets away by introducing the new Avengers. But Yelena is clear, it's the new Avengers who have Valentina under control, not the other way around.
We own you now.
And Valentina isn't the type to just let things happen to her. That's why I think she would have already laid the groundwork by creating her second superhero unit the old-fashioned way, real Black Ops style. This definitely reminds us of the comics. The Thunderbolts have always been a team of anti-heroes, supposedly reformed villains brought together by Baron Zemo. However, at first, Zemo didn't tell them that playing the hero was part of his evil plan to rule the world. This didn't sit well with his teammates who had gotten used to the popularity that comes with being heroes and refused to follow Zemo. The team would change a lot over the years, especially after Civil War, when Tony Stark hunted down heroes and villains to sign the Superhero Restriction Act, forcing every metahuman to register or be locked up. Villains and heroes were then trained and reassigned into task forces that hunted down illegal heroes. After that, it's Norman Osborn who takes over Thunderbolt Mountain, a gigantic camp that houses villains, some of whom are there more or less against their will. The events of Secret Invasion will elevate Osborn to the true status of national hero. He then takes over S.H.I.E.L.D. in place of Tony Stark and installs his Thunderbolts as the new Avengers. Thus begins the era of the Dark Avengers. In his team, we find Bullseye as the fake Hawkeye, Opal as the fake Miss Marvel, Nova as the fake Captain Marvel, Mac Gargan, yes, the Scorpion and his symbiote, as the fake Black Spider-Man Daken, the psychopathic son of Wolverine as the new Wolverine. And at the top, Ares, the god of war, taking Thor's place, as well as Sentry, who is completely manipulated by Norman. Osborn, for his part, dons the Iron Patriot armor and becomes the leader of this team. This team is certainly made up of madmen, but they have to keep up appearances even if their methods are clearly more forceful than the real Avengers. However, Osborn still keeps secrets, since he's also the Thunderbolts director. And so, he secretly puts together an even more dangerous team, his own unit, the Thunderbolts Black Ops, and that's where everything connects with the MCU. Jessica Jones, that's clear. Valentina keeps recruiting, there's Mr. Charles, some metahumans. And Luke Cage, the hero for hire, could be part of it. The last time we saw Luke Cage, he was clearly on the border between crime and heroism, since he took over as the head of the Harlem Mafia to, and I quote, become the sheriff of that mafia. Obviously, years have passed and we see that he's back with Danny Rand for season 3 of Born Again, possibly to confront Sheila and take back New York City Hall. Interesting. So, will he be with or against Jessica, on the hero's side or under Mr. Charles's orders? We'll see. Whatever happens, another character from Born Again could also be involved in all this. It's Bullseye. Benjamin Pondexter had some absolutely masterful scenes this season that changed his whole world. And the actor is taking advantage of this new fame to talk about his character, calling for him to join the Thunderbolts.
When will they finally add Bullseye to the Thunderbolts or similar teams?
What a coincidence! Well, all of this is great, but you originally wanted to know who the villain of Spider-Man is. Well, let's talk about it. The forces of Brand New Day. Spider-Man Brand New Day completely reinvents the character in the MCU. After dragging Peter Parker all over the place and giving him a backstory as different as possible from the comics, Tom Holland and Destin Daniel Cretton seem determined to give Spider-Man back what belongs to Spider-Man. His next movie will therefore introduce many of his mutated enemies. But not just them, since so far, we know that the Punisher, Banner and his Hulk, the so-called Odyssey, and probably Jean Grey will also be part of this movie. Let's not forget the classic villains, such as Tombstone or even the Scorpion. But that's not all, since the trailer revealed to us that the Hand will indeed make its return in the movie. And that's only what has been revealed. Because it's quite possible that the movie is still hiding a lot of surprises. And with all that, it's extremely difficult to tell what kind of movie this will be. Honestly, every day I rack my brain trying to find a clue I might have missed. And the latest Q&A from Alex Perez, one of the best informed insiders in the game, changed everything. A Discord member asks him a question about the Hand. After such a long time without seeing them, who is really behind their return? Alex replies, many people weave webs in the shadows and we're not allowed to discuss it. In theory, we can imagine that none of the previously mentioned characters are among those weaving their webs. Since earlier in this article they talk freely about Tombstone, it must be something else. And that's when another question started it all. Here it is. Given Valentina's vast network and numerous assets, I was wondering if she could somehow be connected to Brand New Day. Given the number of villains and superpowered characters Peter will face, will there be any reference to her in the movie, connecting her to the criminal underworld? And his answer is enlightening. He. Watch to find out, that's all I'll say. Oh, the bastard. But yes, she's trying to create heroes, maybe villains. These Avengers need to serve some purpose. So, as much as Alex loves to play guessing games, these two answers couldn't be clearer. And when you make the connection with Daredevil, you realize that Valentina definitely has something to do with what's going on. In New York, she now occupies the new Avengers Tower and is free from past suspicions. In Thunderbolt, her Sentry project worked, and now there are two possibilities. First, she tries to create a Thunderbolt team by creating or recruiting new meta-humans. A network that she combines with her influence at City Hall, but also remember, in Wonder Man, we learned that it's important for the DODC here to fill the prison. Valentina could very well use it for her experiments and operations, a bit like Amanda Waller and her Suicide Squad over at DC. We also know that Mike Gargan, also known as the Scorpion, is out of prison, but he didn't escape. He was reportedly released by the local DA, we'll see. Alternatively, Oax, the second option for Valentina, could be just as interesting. Valentina Allegra de Fontaine is an expert in manipulation. And we know that the new Avengers are hired out by her to the American government through Oax. That's the main goal of the Sentry project, to create the ideal superhero to rent to the government and increase her influence. What if, in the end, Valentina created the threats that justify the new Avengers' existence? In the past, the Avengers only united to face planetary threats. That's exactly what Nick Fury says at the end of the first Avengers. When he speaks to the World Security Council, he says they will come together when needed.
If we find ourselves in a situation like this again, what will happen then?
They will come back.
Are you really sure about that?
I am.
Why?
Why?
Because we will need them.
So Valentina could create supervillains and super threats to justify the use of heroes. Yes, it's completely twisted, but let me remind you, that's how she trapped the Thunderbolts and saved her own skin by making people believe there was a threat. The Void had been defeated by the new Avengers when in fact she was the one who created the Void. Yes, that's all it takes to put ideas in her head. Last thing, the supposed presence of Yelena in the movie Spider-Man, Brand New Day. Jusqu'ici, tout le monde pensait qu'il s'agissait a cameo to convince Spider-Man to join the new Avengers? But following this new theory, everything becomes clear. Valentina and the connection between the Thunderbolts and Spider-Man, one would set up the other. The only downside here is the timing. Yes, this multiverse saga has been so disjointed that it feels like it starts with the Thunderbolts movie and is only now making sense, between Born Again and Spider-Man. At least on the New York side, Doomsday and Secret Wars are gonna seriously shake things up. And that's putting it mildly, since it's basically the end of the world, the end of the multiverse, really. And that's where it gets a bit complicated because it's not easy to understand right now. But Kevin Feige has been clear about Secret Wars. It's a timeless event, an event that will simply allow the X-Men and the Fantastic Four to join the 616 universe as if they had always been there. Even better, the past events of the MCU will have always happened. In other words, Thanos always attacked, Civil War always took place, and so on. That's why projects with Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and the Defenders are planned for after Born Again Season 3. The street-level stories will continue as if Secret War never happened, and so possibly Valentina's story as well. One thing is certain, the phrase Alex Perez uses, weaving their web in the shadows, is absolutely fitting for Valentina in Spider-Man Brand New Day. But let's go just a little bit further. He also specified that Brand New Day will incorporate elements in a way that will affect both the Spider-Man movie and Daredevil, Born Again, in the coming seasons. One more sign that Valentina is probably the next big street-level villain, who will not only create chaos in New York, but also bring down Fisk and therefore possibly create an unlikely alliance. But wait, because all of this could go even further. I'm preparing a video for you about the big villains of the next saga, taking into account that each arc will have its own villain. The paranormal will focus on Mephisto, the cosmic on Annihilus, the mutants probably on Mr. Sinister, and while I thought the street level one would focus on Tombstone. Alex Perez ended his Q&A by talking about the new Avengers. He says the team will return much sooner than expected after Secret Wars. Unlike the Avengers, they won't wait for a huge team-up event to get together. On the contrary, the movie will focus on the current team. And so, possibly with villains worthy of them, especially by teasing the return of a Taskmaster, or at least a new character using their technology. You know me, I love connecting the dots. I'm sure the new Avengers will turn against Valentina and face her new Black Ops Thunderbolts team made up of, why not, a Bullseye, a Taskmaster, and maybe even Mac Gargan with the symbiote. So, what do you think about this theory? Does it speak to you? If you're discovering my channel for the first time, I break down and theorize about Marvel and DC news every week, so if you enjoyed it, subscribe, it's free. Meanwhile, remember to stay curious. That's the key to happiness.